guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of A Sorrow Fierce and Falling by Jessica Cluess. This is the third and final book in the Kingdom on Fire series. I did a review for the first book, so I'll link that because I may talk about things that spoil the first book. I never know what I'm going to talk about until I get into it, so I just don't want you to watch this if you haven't read the other books in this series. And I will also be talking about just the series as a whole as well in this, in a spoiler-free way, just my thoughts in general about the whole conclusion and the series as a whole. So this picks up shortly after the events of the second book and is really the culmination and the final battle against the Ancients, and really has a theme of bringing all the magic users together in an effort to stop the Ancients and send them back from whence they came. So first off, I'm gonna talk about the world building. I really enjoy the world in here. If you're still watching this and you haven't read the series, I compare this a lot to the Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare and kind of Cassandra Clare novels in general, but that Victorian England setting, and I actually prefer this world to the Shadowhunter world. I find the different kinds of magic users so interesting because they all have their own distinct, unique kind of like flavor of magic between the sorcerers, the magicians, and the witches. They're all so different. The magicians especially are so eclectic, and I wish we could see more of them and just like their society because I find it so fun. And there's fae and things like that, but ultimately kind of what this whole series suffers from a bit is just a lack of time. I really do feel like we could have seen more of the different magic users. We could have seen more of like the fae and how they influence things. Like it just is such a fast-moving series, which is fun in a lot of ways, but I just feel like a lot of things needed more time. Next, I'm going to talk about our characters. This series is one I always talk about as having a kind of like a love square, which is true, but I don't mind it in this series for some reason. I think what I like about this series is that this is one of the original series that sort of like walked so other dark series could run, because this has all of the characters being fairly morally gray while still being like an upbeat sort of hopeful story, but I find that it just is so much darker than a lot of series were when this one came out, especially YA series. All of the love interests have a bit of darkness to them. The main character does as well. Like everybody has a little bit of like a grayness to them. Like there's no right choice completely. And I really appreciate that with this series and how kind of like vague it is. I also found that the themes of this last book especially were really good, and kind of the journeys the characters go on and the things they have to do. Again, there's not quite enough time, and I wish we had more time for some of the things, but everything that happened and how everything worked out or didn't with certain characters made a lot of sense to me, and I found that like really satisfying, even if the time it took to get there was shortened. And lastly, I'm gonna talk about the plot. Like I mentioned, the plot is just so fast-paced, and I liked that about the other books in the series, but this book really felt very rushed. There's so many really important plot points that happen in here, revelations and things like that, that just happened so quickly, and we just didn't have enough time to really like soak in the impact of them. The passage of time even in this is pretty muddled. There are times that it kind of implies that a lot of time has passed, but you don't really feel that as a reader, and that also is hard for some of the character developments as well, and some of the relationship stuff, because it's like you don't get to see that passage of time. So ultimately, like I mentioned, I liked how everything concluded in here and what ended up happening and how everything left off, but I wish there was more time to get there because it did feel so rushed. So I honestly feel like this could have been a 4-book series, and that would have been so satisfying because there would have been much more time to get through everything. So I end up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. I still recommend this series. I had some people ask me after this on my review on Goodreads if I still recommended it. I do still think it's a fun, underrated series, but there are some things I just feel like could have been done slightly better, and it would have been like so great. But again, really fun. I like what the series does, and I still would recommend it to people, especially if you want something really quick to just fly through. I am going to be doing a spoilery discussion on this book and this series in general, because I know it's not very widely read, and I know some people that do want to discuss it and everything, so I will link that on the screen if you have read the series. So comment below, let me know your thoughts on A Sorrow Fierce and Falling. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.